You stink of wet poverty, she sneered, shoving the old woman into the pool. Champagne bubbles burst as laughter echoed, and for a moment, her beauty ruled the night. But she didn't know the woman she drowned in mockery was the mother of her billionaire lover. She didn't know the ripples in that pool would soon become the waves that sank her entire life. Before we continue, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more stories like this. Lucy Hartwell had always believed the world revolved around her. Or, at least, it should. Every morning, she woke up to sunlight streaming through tall glass windows of her penthouse apartment, her phone already buzzing with notifications, comments, likes, and adoring messages from followers who believed she was perfection itself. Today was no different. Lucy stood in front of a massive gold-framed mirror, tilting her face this way and that as her makeup artist carefully applied highlighter to her cheekbones. Perfect, Lucy murmured, not so much to the makeup artist, but to her own reflection. Absolutely flawless. I swear, no one else in this city even comes close. Her assistant, Emily, who was scrolling through emails on a tablet, didn't look up. You've got the Bradford party tomorrow, Lucy. Biggest event of the summer. Press, influencers, CEOs. You need to stand out. Lucy smirked, tossing her silky blonde hair over her shoulder. Darling, I don't stand out. I shine. People can't look away. Collins is lucky to have me on his arm. At the mention of Collins Bradford, Lucy's expression softened, though not with love. Collins was handsome in a boyish way, with warm brown eyes and a polite smile, but what mattered more was his name. The Bradfords owned half the city. Hotels, tech companies, fashion brands, it all came back to that dynasty. And Lucy, with her millions of followers and glittering lifestyle, thought herself the perfect match. Still, Collins was different. Quieter. He didn't seem to care about likes or comments. Sometimes she caught him staring at her phone screen with faint disapproval, as if he couldn't understand why someone would live for the approval of strangers. She brushed the thought aside. She'd fix him. Once they were married, he'd see things her way. That afternoon, Lucy set up for a poolside photo shoot. Her private rooftop pool shimmered like liquid sapphire, lined with potted palms. 2 photographers circled her, snapping shots as she posed in a designer swimsuit worth more than most people's rent. Angles, people, angles. Lucy shouted, tossing her hair back dramatically. Get the sunlight hitting my collarbone. Oh, and Emily, can you bring the champagne glass? I want this to scream effortless luxury. Collins arrived halfway through, his shirt sleeves rolled up casually, his hair a little messy from the summer wind. He leaned against the railing, watching as Lucy stretched herself across a lounger with exaggerated grace. You look busy, he said with a small smile. Lucy glanced at him briefly, then returned her gaze to the camera. This isn't busy, darling. This is branding. Content. The kind of thing that keeps doors open. Collins chuckled softly, though his eyes didn't quite match the sound. Or closes some. Lucy turned sharply, frowning. What's that supposed to mean? He shrugged. Nothing. Just, not everything has to be for an audience. Sometimes it's nice to just live. Lucy rolled her eyes. Spoken like someone who's never had to build a brand. You don't understand, Collins. People expect me to be perfect. To be the dream they can't reach. That's what makes me valuable. Collins didn't argue, though the disappointment in his gaze was clear. Instead, he changed the subject. I hope you're ready for tomorrow. The party at my family's estate. Oh, I've been ready for weeks, Lucy interrupted, her smile returning. Trust me, Collins, when I walk in there, no one will remember a single person but me. Collins gave a small laugh, though this time there was sadness beneath it. Maybe. But I'd rather they remembered you for kindness. Lucy waved a dismissive hand. Kindness doesn't trend, sweetheart. Glamour does. And with that, she returned to posing, her laughter echoing against the pool tiles as the cameras clicked. The next day was bright and warm, the kind of summer afternoon made for champagne glasses clinking under the sun. The Bradford estate stretched across acres of green lawns and sculpted gardens, with fountains that sprayed silver arcs into the air and marble statues watching silently from every corner. Guests began to arrive in sleek cars: politicians, CEOs, celebrities, old money families dressed in understated elegance. Everyone wanted to be seen at the Bradford party. Lucy stepped out of a limousine in a gown of shimmering gold, every inch of her radiating confidence. Photographers at the gate snapped pictures, and she turned her head just enough to let them capture her best angle. Beside her, Collins looked simple but polished, his suit tailored but not loud. He didn't need to try, he carried himself with quiet dignity, while Lucy demanded attention like fire demanding oxygen. As they walked through the gardens, Lucy leaned close and whispered, "They're all staring already." Collins smiled faintly. "Yes, though not always for the reason you think." Lucy didn't catch the meaning. She was too busy scanning the crowd for familiar faces. At the poolside, crystal glasses were being passed around by servers in crisp uniforms. The pool sparkled under the sunlight, framed by white parasols and clusters of laughing guests. A string quartet played softly in the corner. "Collins, darling." A man in a navy suit approached with a wide smile. "Good to see you. And this must be Lucy, yes? The famous Lucy Hartwell." Lucy extended her hand gracefully, basking in the recognition. "The one and only." As the man walked away, Collins noticed how Lucy's smile tightened the moment he was gone. "You okay?" he asked. "I hate when they call me famous like it's a novelty," she muttered. "I'm not some circus trick. I am famous." Collins gave a patient nod, though he seemed weary. Later, as Lucy floated through the crowd, sipping champagne, she noticed an elderly woman standing near the flowerbeds. The woman was small, silver-haired, her simple linen dress at odds with the diamonds and silk swirling around her. She was speaking quietly with a gardener, her hands folded neatly in front of her. To Lucy, she looked entirely out of place. The old woman eventually wandered closer to the pool, pausing to admire the roses climbing up a trellis. She turned and smiled warmly at Lucy. "Beautiful, aren't they? These gardens took years of patience." Lucy blinked, slightly annoyed at being addressed. She tilted her chin up. "Yes, well, patience isn't really my thing. I prefer things fast. Success, results, all of it." The woman chuckled softly. "Sometimes the best things in life take time." Lucy narrowed her eyes. "And who exactly are you? I don't remember seeing you on the guest list." "Oh, the woman began, but Lucy cut her off, waving her hand dismissively. "You must be some local wandering in. Honestly, this happens too often. Security really should do better." The old woman looked surprised but not offended. She simply smiled again. "Oh, I'm no intruder. But Lucy laughed, loud enough for nearby guests to turn their heads. "You're not fooling anyone, dear. That dress? Please. You look like you came straight from a thrift shop. Honestly, I can smell the wet poverty from here." Gasps echoed around the pool. A few people even froze mid-conversation, eyes wide. Lucy's smile widened at the attention. The elderly woman's face softened, sadness flickering in her eyes. "I think you've misunderstood." Before she could finish, Lucy shoved her shoulder lightly, and the woman stumbled backward into the pool with a splash. For a heartbeat, silence. The string quartet faltered. Every phone in the area lifted into the air, cameras recording. Lucy turned dramatically toward the crowd, her voice dripping with arrogance. "Now that's entertainment." But no one laughed. Collins's voice cut through the silence, sharper than Lucy had ever heard before. "Lucy, what have you done?" The water's splash rang louder than it should have, followed by the sharp intake of breaths from every guest around the pool. Champagne glasses paused mid-air. Conversations froze mid-sentence. The music faltered into silence. The elderly woman surfaced slowly, her silver hair plastered against her cheeks, her simple dress floating around her like seaweed. For a moment, she said nothing, blinking calmly against the water streaming down her face. She carried herself with a dignity that seemed strangely unshaken, though her frail frame trembled in the cool pool. Lucy, however, stood tall at the edge, her hands on her hips, smiling as though she had just performed for an audience. "Oh, don't look at me like that," she said, flicking her hair. "It's just water. I'm sure she's had a bath before." Several guests gasped again. A man near the bar muttered, "Unbelievable," while a young woman shook her head and whispered, "Is she serious?" Phones hovered higher now, capturing every second. Lucy, too absorbed in her own performance, seemed to think it was just another chance to go viral. "Come on, everyone," Lucy continued, her tone mockingly sweet. "She didn't belong here anyway. At least now she's part of the entertainment." That was when Collins moved. He had been rooted in stunned silence, his fists clenched, his chest rising and falling with restrained fury. Now, his shoes slapped against the marble tiles as he strode to the pool's edge and extended a hand. "Mother," he said softly, urgently. The word sliced through the air like a blade. Lucy's smile faltered, her laughter choking in her throat. "Wait. Did you just, what?" The soaked woman looked up at him with calm eyes, eyes that matched his exactly. Slowly, she placed her wet hand in his and allowed him to pull her from the pool. Water streamed from her dress onto the stone, forming small rivers that wound toward the drains. Collins removed his jacket immediately and wrapped it around her shoulders. His movements were tender, reverent, as though she were not simply his mother but a queen returning from exile. Lucy's face paled. She's your mother." Collins turned his gaze on Lucy, and it was unlike any expression she had ever seen from him. His usual warmth was gone, replaced by an icy disappointment that cut deeper than anger. "Yes," he said, his voice low but sharp enough for everyone to hear. "This is Rose Bradford. My mother. The woman who built this estate. The woman who co-founded everything this family owns." Gasps echoed again, louder this time, followed by murmurs. "Oh my God. She pushed his mother. That's Rose Addison Bradford? I thought she was. She's the one who—" The voices blended into a storm of disbelief. Lucy shook her head violently. No, this isn't. This is a joke. You're joking, Collins." Rose, still calm despite her drenched state, glanced at Lucy with quiet eyes. "I tried to tell you," she said softly, "but you wouldn't let me finish." Collins's jaw tightened. He stepped closer to Lucy, his voice trembling with restrained fury. "I brought you here to meet the people I care about, to see more than flashing cameras and staged perfection. And what did you do?" His voice broke slightly. "You mocked the very woman who gave me everything. Who gave us all of this. You shoved her into a pool because she didn't fit your shallow idea of belonging." Lucy's hands shook, though she tried to keep her voice steady. I didn't know. How was I supposed to know she was your—" "You didn't care," Collins snapped. "That's the point, Lucy. You didn't care who she was. You saw an old woman in a plain dress and you decided she wasn't worthy of you. That's who you are." The silence that followed was deafening. All around, guests stared, phone still recording, capturing every word, every tear shimmering in Collins's eyes. Lucy opened her mouth to argue, but no sound came. For once, she had no line prepared, no witty retort. Collins inhaled sharply, steadying himself. "We're done, Lucy. Whatever this was, it ends now." Her eyes widened, her heart thundering in her chest. You can't just—" "Yes, I can." His voice was calm now, cold as ice. "You've shown me your true character, and I want nothing to do with it." Rose touched his arm gently. "Collins," she murmured, as though trying to soften his tone. But Collins shook his head. "No, Mother. She needs to hear this." He looked at Lucy again, his voice cracking slightly as the disappointment consumed him. I thought you loved me. But you only ever loved the idea of me. The name. The money. The shine. Tears pricked Lucy's eyes, but they weren't tears of remorse, more of panic, of the realization that the glittering image she had built was shattering before her. Collins, please. We can talk. No, he turned away, leading his mother toward the house. I've seen enough. Lucy stood frozen, surrounded by a circle of whispers, flashing cameras, and cold stares. For the first time in her life, she felt exposed, stripped of the power her beauty and fame had always given her. And somewhere deep inside, fear began to bloom. The party dissolved into chaos. Some guests rushed to Rose with towels, offering sympathy, while others simply whispered and recorded, eager to upload the scandal. The string quartet attempted to resume playing but quickly gave up, their notes drowned out by the buzz of shocked conversation. Lucy remained rooted near the pool, staring at the ripples where Rose had fallen. Her glass slipped from her hand and shattered against the tiles, but she barely noticed. Emily, her assistant, rushed up, her face pale. Lucy, oh my God, Lucy, this is everywhere already. She held up her phone, showing live posts flooding across Instagram and TikTok. Short clips of Lucy shoving Rose, Lucy sneering wet poverty, Lucy laughing as everyone gasped. Within minutes, the captions read, Influencer bullies old woman at Bradford Estate. Lucy Hartwell pushes Collins's mother into pool. This is who she really is. Lucy grabbed the phone with trembling hands. No, this is edited. They're twisting it. But even she knew it wasn't. The clips were clear, the audio crisp. Her cruelty was undeniable. Oh God, she whispered. Meanwhile, inside the estate, Collins sat beside his mother, his arm draped protectively around her shoulders. Towels and blankets had been brought, but Rose seemed unconcerned with her soaked state. She smiled faintly, her eyes focused only on her son. You didn't need to defend me like that, she said softly. I've endured worse. People show their hearts in the way they treat those they don't think matter. Collins's voice cracked. But she hurt you. She humiliated you. Rose shook her head gently. She humiliated herself. Collins looked down, his hands gripping tightly together. I can't believe I didn't see it sooner. I thought she was someone worth loving. Rose placed a hand over his. We all get blinded sometimes. The important thing is that you opened your eyes. Collins exhaled heavily, staring out the window at the gardens. The world will eat her alive for this. Let it, Rose said simply. I don't need revenge. The truth is enough. Back outside, Lucy was unraveling. She cornered one of the photographers, her voice frantic. Delete it. Delete the footage. I'll pay you double what you make in a year. The man scoffed. Lady, this is the biggest story of the year. Do you think anyone's deleting this? Another guest muttered loudly, she's finished. Lucy turned sharply, her teeth gritted. No, I'm not finished. This isn't fair. But the crowd's eyes had changed. Where once they looked at her with envy, now they looked at her with disgust. Some smirked, delighted at her downfall. Others shook their heads in quiet disappointment. She stormed toward the mansion, heels clicking violently against the stone. She needed Collins. She needed to explain, to twist this, to salvage what she could. Inside, she found him standing near the grand staircase, Rose by his side, still wrapped in his jacket. Collins, she cried, rushing forward. Please, listen to me. I didn't know. I thought she was. Collins raised a hand, silencing her instantly. His face was a mask of calm resolve. You thought she was less, he said coldly. That's all that matters. Lucy's throat tightened. No, I was just trying to. To what? He interrupted sharply. To impress people? To get laughs? To prove you're untouchable? Look around, Lucy. You're not untouchable. You're just cruel. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Collins, don't do this to me. I love you. His eyes softened briefly, but not with affection, only pity. No. You love what I represent. You never loved me. The word struck her harder than a slap. She staggered slightly, her chest heaving. Rose finally spoke, her voice gentle. Lucy, power and beauty are fleeting. Character is not. Today, you showed the world your character. Lucy shook her head violently. No, that's not me. That's not who I am. But even as she said it, she knew the cameras outside had already immortalized her cruelty. To the world, it was who she was. Collins turned away, guiding his mother up the staircase. We're done here, he said without looking back. Lucy stood alone in the grand hall, her sobs echoing against the marble walls as guests whispered from the doorway. And outside, the internet continued its merciless work. Lucy had always thought the camera was her best friend. It had given her fame, wealth, and influence. It had captured her beauty in golden light and shared it with millions who worshipped her. Now, that same camera turned predator. By dawn the morning after the pool party, the videos were everywhere. They played on breakfast news programs, they looped endlessly on TikTok, they were dissected on YouTube channels and podcasts. Every second of her sneering insult, every frame of Rose falling into the pool, was replayed with captions and commentary that burned. Smelling like wet poverty. Lucy Hartwell's cruelest words. How arrogance killed an influencer's career overnight. The memes followed quickly. Her sneer was turned into stickers, her shove into GIFs. One meme showed her pushing cartoon characters, another showed her words pasted onto photos of kittens and babies. The internet didn't just cancel Lucy, it devoured her. In her penthouse apartment, Lucy sat hunched over her phone, eyes bloodshot from hours of scrolling. Emily, her assistant, hovered nervously nearby, wringing her hands. They're twisting it, Lucy muttered, her voice hoarse. They're making me out to be a monster. It was a joke. It was just a joke. Emily glanced at the screen. Thousands of comments scrolled by every minute. This is disgusting. Who treats an old woman like that? Unfollowed. Never supporting her again. She thought she was above everyone, and now look at her. Lucy, Emily began carefully, I think you need to step back from social media for a while. Lucy's head snapped up, her eyes blazing. Step back? Are you insane? If I don't respond, they'll control the narrative. I have to explain myself. She tapped furiously at her phone, recording a video. Her face was painted with false sincerity, her voice dripping with practiced apology. Hi everyone, she began, forcing a smile. I just want to clear the air about what happened yesterday. First of all, I didn't know who that woman was. But within hours, the apology video had been torn apart. Clips of her saying I didn't know who she was spread with captions like, "So it's okay to bully strangers?" Her attempt to cry on camera was compared to actresses faking emotion. Someone even spliced it with her laughing at the party, side by side, with the caption, "She's only sorry she got caught." By evening, brands began cutting ties. Luxury labels released cold statements, "We do not condone cruelty or disrespect." Effective immediately, our partnership with Lucy Hartwell has ended. Collabs were pulled, sponsorships vanished, contracts dissolved. The empire Lucy had built with selfies and captions crumbled in less than 24 hours. Emily stood in the doorway of Lucy's bedroom, voice trembling. "Lucy, Dior just dropped you. And the skincare deal too. Your agency's asking if you want to make a formal statement, but..." "No!" Lucy screamed, hurling a perfume bottle against the wall. It shattered, filling the room with a sharp floral scent that turned her stomach. "They're cowards. All of them. I made those brands matter. Me. And now they're..." She stopped, collapsing onto the bed. Her phone slipped from her fingers, screen still glowing with a storm of hate outside. For the first time in her life, Lucy Hartwell felt small. And she hated it. The next morning, paparazzi camped outside her building. Shouting reporters shoved microphones at her whenever she dared step outside, their questions sharp and merciless. Lucy, do you have anything to say to Rose Bradford? Lucy, do you think your career is over? Lucy, are you planning to apologize to Collins? She tried to slip past in oversized sunglasses, but the cameras still flashed, catching her in every angle of desperation. Online, the story only grew. Talk show hosts mocked her. Comedians built whole skits around her cruelty. Even former fans began sharing personal stories. I met Lucy once, and she was so rude. I'm not surprised. Her name had become shorthand for arrogance. Lucy Hartwell wasn't just cancelled, she was infamous. And no matter what she said, the world no longer wanted to hear her voice. While Lucy's world collapsed, Rose Bradford's life remained strangely unchanged. In the days after the scandal, reporters swarmed the estate, desperate for a comment. They wanted anger. They wanted revenge. They wanted the wronged mother to speak, to lash out, to condemn Lucy in words as sharp as her shove had been. But Rose gave them nothing. Every time she was asked, she simply said, "No comment." She continued her days as she always had, visiting local charities, overseeing donations, sitting quietly in community meetings when no one cared about luxury gowns or viral fame. She didn't wear makeup or chase cameras. She didn't need to. Her silence was not weakness, it was power. At a small homeless shelter downtown, she spent an afternoon serving soup, her silver hair pulled back neatly, her smile gentle. The volunteers whispered among themselves, knowing who she was, knowing what had happened. But she never brought it up. Instead, she asked about their lives, their families, their struggles. A young volunteer finally gathered the courage to ask, "Mrs. Bradford, aren't you angry? After what she did?" Rose paused, ladling soup into a bowl. She looked up with eyes that had seen decades of triumph and hardship. "No," she said simply. "Anger doesn't heal. I'd rather spend my time helping than hating." The volunteer nodded, touched. And without realizing it, her words began to spread, first as whispers, then as posts online, then as headlines. Rose Bradford refuses to retaliate. The dignity of silence, Rose's quiet grace after Lucy scandal. True power lies in humility, says Bradford matriarch. The contrast was stark. While Lucy fought, screamed, and clawed to reclaim her image, Rose grew more admired with every passing day. Collins watched it all unfold with a mixture of pride and sorrow. One evening, he sat with his mother in the library, the fire casting golden light on the shelves. "You've become the hero in all this," he said quietly. "People adore you even more now." Rose shook her head, her knitting needles clicking softly in her hands. "I don't want to be a hero, Collins. I only want to live with dignity." That girl, Lucy, she thought power meant being above others. But real power is in how you treat people when no one is watching. Collins sighed, leaning back in his chair. "I wish I had seen her true nature sooner. I kept telling myself she would change." His mother looked at him gently. "We all hope for the best in people. But don't blame yourself for her choices. She revealed who she was." He nodded slowly, though the disappointment still lingered. "Do you think she'll ever recover from this?" Rose set her knitting down and met his gaze. "Only if she learns humility. But pride is a heavy chain. Some people never put it down." Meanwhile, Lucy watched all of this from the wreckage of her own world. She saw Rose's quiet grace on the news, saw how the public adored her even more for her refusal to retaliate. And it drove Lucy mad. "She's playing the saint," Lucy spat at Emily one night, pacing her darkened living room. "That's why they love her. She's not even doing anything, and they worship her." Emily hesitated. Maybe that's the point, Lucy. Maybe she doesn't need to do anything. She just is what people respect." Lucy stopped, her face hardening. Well, I'm not going to let her win. I'll find a way back. I always do. But deep down, she knew Emily was right. No matter how loudly she shouted, no matter how desperately she fought, Lucy Hartwell was a symbol now, a warning. And Rose Bradford was everything she could never be. That week, a viral tweet summed up the world's view perfectly. Lucy taught us that arrogance destroys. Rose taught us that grace endures. Who would you rather be? It had millions of likes. And Lucy's name, once synonymous with glamour, was now nothing more than a punchline. Lucy Hartwell's penthouse once glittered with life. Music, laughter, flashes of cameras, the smell of champagne and perfume. It had been the center of her world, her throne room high above the city. Now, it was silent. The curtains were drawn tight, blocking out the skyline she used to show off proudly in every photo. Piles of unopened mail sat on the kitchen counter, notices from her landlord, bills, warnings from banks. Her assistant Emily had stopped coming by days ago, too overwhelmed by the chaos that followed Lucy everywhere. Lucy sat on the couch in an oversized hoodie, her face bare of makeup, her phone dim in her lap. She scrolled endlessly through the comments, each one a knife. Remember when we thought she was classy? LMAO. Lucy Hartwell equals Cruella de Vil of influencers. She'll be forgotten in a month, like every other scandal. But her cruelty will live forever online. She tossed the phone aside, burying her face in her hands. They don't know me, she whispered to the empty room. They don't know anything. But wasn't this exactly who she was? Hadn't she laughed at the old woman without hesitation? Hadn't she sneered without even asking her name? She shook her head violently. No, that wasn't me. That was just pressure. Performance. Everyone expected me to be sharp, to be funny. It was the crowd, the moment. That's all. Yet even as she tried to justify it, the memory replayed, Rose's eyes, calm and sad, looking up from the pool as the laughter died. Lucy couldn't bear it. A week later, she tried to stage a comeback. She posted a photo on Instagram, herself in a pale dress, no makeup, sitting by a window with a mug of tea. The caption read, "We all make mistakes. I'm human too. Please remember that before you judge me." Within minutes, the comments flooded in. This isn't about being human. It's about being cruel. You shoved someone's mother into a pool and mocked her. Own it. Stop trying to make people feel sorry for you. The post was ripped apart, screenshots shared with sarcastic captions, Lucy discovers humanity. She deleted it within an hour, but the damage was worse. People mocked her deleting spree now too. By nightfall, her phone buzzed with a message from one of her last sponsors. Lucy, effective immediately, we are terminating all contracts. Please remove our tags from your platforms. We will not be paying the final installment. Lucy hurled the phone across the room. It hit the wall with a crack, the screen shattering. Ungrateful bastards, she hissed. They all used me. Every last one. But the truth was heavier, she had used them too. Everyone had been a stepping stone. Now, no one wanted to be near her. Her fall wasn't just online. At a cafe one morning, she overheard whispers as soon as she walked in. That's her. God, she looks awful in real life. I can't believe she's even showing her face in public. When she approached the counter, the barista's smile faltered. Sorry, he said awkwardly. We're actually out of what you ordered. She glanced at the menu, then back at him. Out of coffee. He cleared his throat. Yeah. It was a lie. A humiliating one. She turned and walked out, cheeks burning as laughter followed her. Lucy pulled her coat tighter around herself. The city she once ruled no longer wanted her. For the first time, she felt something she never had before. Loneliness. That night, lying in her dark apartment, she whispered into the silence. Collins, why couldn't you just forgive me? But even she knew the answer. While Lucy unraveled, Collins Bradford was rebuilding, not his empire, but himself. The days after the scandal had been difficult. He carried shame for having brought Lucy into their world, for not seeing the cruelty lurking beneath her glitter. But with Rose by his side, he began to see things differently. One morning, he accompanied his mother to a community kitchen the Bradford Foundation funded. The line of people stretched around the block, men and women with tired eyes, children tugging at their sleeves. Collins hesitated at first, unsure how to bridge the gap between his world and theirs. But Rose guided him gently. "Start by listening," she said, handing him a ladle. So he served soup, smiling, asking names. He met a man who had lost his job and home after an accident, a mother raising 3 children alone, a teenager who dreamed of becoming a musician but had no money for lessons. By the end of the day, Collins's shirt was stained, his hands tired, but his heart felt full. As they walked back to the car, he said softly, "I never realized how little it takes to make a difference." Rose smiled. The world doesn't need more people who want to be seen. It needs more people who want to see. The words stayed with him. In the weeks that followed, Collins spent less time at exclusive parties and more in board meetings, negotiating fairer practices for the companies his family owned. He cut back unnecessary extravagance in their hotels, directing funds towards staff wages and local programs. When journalists asked him why, he answered simply, "Because people matter more than image." The public noticed. Articles praised his leadership. Interviews highlighted his humility. And every time his name trended, it was not for scandal, but for substance. One evening, he sat with Rose in the garden, the scent of jasmine thick in the air. "I think I finally understand, Mother," he said quietly. "What you've always taught me. Wealth isn't power. Influence isn't power. Kindness is." Rose touched his hand, her eyes glowing with quiet pride. "I knew you'd see it, Collins. It just took the right storm to clear the air." He thought of Lucy then, not with anger, but with sorrow. She had been part of the storm. And though she was gone from his life, she had forced him to open his eyes. "I don't hate her," he admitted. "I just pity her. She could have had everything real, but she chose something empty." Rose nodded. "Perhaps one day she'll learn. But her path isn't yours anymore." Collins looked up at the stars, the night peaceful. For the first time in months, he felt light. The scandal had taken away a relationship, but it had given him clarity. And in that, he had found something Lucy never could, renewal. Meanwhile, across the city, Lucy sat in darkness, scrolling through endless videos of Collins's new interviews. He looked happy, fulfilled, admired. She pressed her cracked phone to her chest, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Why him?" she whispered. "Why does he get to rise while I fall?" But she already knew the answer. It wasn't about wealth. It was about who they had chosen to be when the world was watching, and when it wasn't. Scandals burned fast, Lucy had once told herself. Today's outrage was tomorrow's forgotten headline. But this one didn't fade. Months passed, and the video of Lucy shoving Rose into the pool still made its rounds. College professors played it in ethics lectures. Influencer panels brought her up as a cautionary tale. Documentaries about the dark side of influence used her sneer as their cover image. Lucy Hartwell wasn't just an influencer anymore. She was a cultural warning. And the world had moved on without her. At a university lecture hall, a professor played the viral clip on a projector. The students groaned, some laughing, others shaking their heads. "Class," the professor said, "this is what unchecked pride looks like." Lucy Hartwell thought beauty and fame gave her power. But power without empathy is hollow. Now, who can tell me why this resonated so deeply with the public? Hands shot up. A young woman in the front row said, "Because we all knew someone like her. Arrogant, cruel, pretending they're better than everyone. Seeing her fall was satisfying." Another student added, "And Rose's reaction. She didn't fight back. She didn't need to. Her grace was the ultimate revenge." The professor nodded. Exactly. Lucy Hartwell made arrogance infamous. Rose Bradford made humility timeless. The students scribbled notes. For them, Lucy was no longer a person. She was a lesson. Meanwhile, Collins Bradford rose higher than ever. Business magazines praised his reforms. Photos of him visiting shelters, hospitals, and schools circulated online, celebrated not as publicity stunts but genuine acts of service. He didn't post about them himself, others did. And that authenticity only deepened the public's respect. One headline read, "From Scandal to Substance, How Collins Bradford Learned to Lead." In interviews, he always credited his mother. "She taught me that true wealth is character. I didn't understand it before. I do now." Rose, ever humble, refused interviews, but her silence only added to her legend. She kept working quietly in the background, steering her foundation and tending her gardens, content to let the world think what it wished. And Lucy? She watched it all from the shadows. In her small rented apartment, far from the glittering penthouse she'd lost, she sat on a second-hand sofa, her cracked phone clutched in hand. She scrolled through Collins's latest interview, her throat tight. He looked different now. Stronger. Confident in a way she had never seen before. He laughed easily with the interviewer, his eyes shining when he spoke of his mother. Lucy's lips trembled. "That should have been me beside him," she whispered. But she knew, deep down, that it never could have been. At a grocery store one afternoon, she heard two women whisper behind her. "Isn't that Lucy Hartwell?" God, yes. Look at her. Nothing like she used to be. She's lucky no one spits at her. Lucy kept her head down, clutching a basket of instant noodles and discount bread. Once, she wouldn't have been caught dead with such things. Now, they were all she could afford. The women passed her, laughing softly. Lucy's cheeks burned. She hurried out of the store, holding back tears. On the street, a giant billboard loomed above her, an advertisement for the Bradford Foundation's latest campaign. Collins's face smiled down at her, Rose's name beneath it. Lucy stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, staring up, the world bustling indifferently around her. "Why do they win?" she whispered bitterly. "Why do they get everything after what they did to me?" But the truth echoed in her mind. They hadn't done anything to her. She had done it to herself. Lucy's life became a quiet echo of what it once had been. She no longer had assistants or photographers, no brand deliveries stacked at her door, no private drivers waiting in sleek cars. Her days blurred together, waking late, scrolling aimlessly, staring into mirrors that no longer reflected admiration but regret. Her beauty was still there, but beauty without a spotlight was invisible. And her name was no longer adored, it was ridiculed. One evening, Lucy wandered the city streets, had pulled low to avoid recognition. She passed a cafe where a group of teenagers laughed over a phone. Curious, she glanced inside, and froze. On the screen, they were watching the viral remix of her scandal. Someone had edited the clip into a song, her words "wet poverty" repeated to a beat, her shove timed to the rhythm. The teenagers sang along, laughing, pointing at the screen. Lucy staggered back from the window, her chest tightening. Her own voice haunted her, twisted into entertainment. She turned and fled, the sound chasing her down the street. That night, she sat in her dark apartment, scrolling through old photos on her broken phone. There she was at Paris Fashion Week, in yachts on the Amalfi Coast, clinking champagne glasses at rooftop parties. Smiling, glowing, adored. She stared at those images until they blurred through her tears. "They'll remember me for this," she whispered. "Not for the beauty. Not for the life I built. Just for cruelty." The word tasted like ash on her tongue. She closed her eyes, pressing the phone to her chest. The silence was heavy. Across the city, Collins sat with Rose in the garden of the Bradford estate. The moonlight glowed against the roses, the air filled with their perfume. "You've done well," Rose said softly, pride in her voice. Collins smiled. "Because of you." They sat in peaceful silence, The kind Lucy had never known. Quiet, humble, steady. Back in her apartment, Lucy whispered into the dark. I used to think the world would never forget my beauty. Her reflection stared back at her from the black screen of her phone, pale and hollow. But they'll only ever remember my cruelty. And with that, Lucy Hartwell faded into the shadows of her own emptiness, once the queen of attention, now nothing more than an echo. One moment of cruelty destroyed her empire. One act of grace built another. Which path would you take? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tales where pride rises and falls.